Choosing a right educational method is not an easy task even for experienced educator. In my practice, I have been meeting educators who consider method to be a core of the design of educational program. They think that if they have impressive methods, then their participants will be absolutely emotionally satisfied, and that is the main thing. So they collect books and resources with description of methods and think that the more method the educator has in his or her collection, the better specialist he or she is. And the programs of such educators sometimes look like a Lego. They choose impressive methods, mix them, and design a whole program based on this colorful mix. In the first video, if you remember, when I was talking about the methods in general, I gave an example of a great expert who had to give a speech in front of the very motivated audience, but he failed because he didn't choose a right way to deliver the information to the public. So he didn't choose the right method in terms of education. But do you know that preparing to a speech, a speaker needs to answer the same question which the educator should answer before he starts choosing methods for his program? So now on the slide, you can see a list of questions which a speaker has to answer, and in commas, you can see the interpretation of these questions for educators. So before you even start to think about the methods, you need to answer to yourself several questions like, who will be your audience? Who are those people who will come to your course? Why they should spend time on your course, and why they have to choose exactly your course from the number of others? What are their needs? What will be their mood? What do they want to learn from the course? What will be a good result for them, and what will be a good result for you as for an educator? And also, what do you want them to learn, to remember, and to feel during the course? In public speaking, a speaker doesn't start the main preparation before he has the answers to all these questions. And when he has an answer, then it will be very easy for him to choose the right technique for a speech, like storytelling or examples, statistics, or interaction with the audience. The same thing in education. Don't choose method till you did all the preliminary preparational work. Remember, you can be a great expert and you can have the best audience in the world, but if you fail to choose the right method, unfortunately, the whole educational strategy can fail. So what algorithm for choosing method exists? The easiest and at the same time the most effective one, which I also use in my practice, is called the Active Learning Continuum framework. It was developed by Tracy Sutherland and Charles Bonwell in 1996, and it helps to categorize methods using a series of continuums. So the authors detail the use of 4 continuums to measure variables associated with the process of selecting an appropriate method. And the continuums are task complexity continuum, course objective continuum, classroom interaction continuum, and continuum of student experience. And we will look now at every of these continuums in more details. The task complexity continuum examines a particular active learning strategy to determine its complexity. The continuum ranges from simple to complex. Methods that take a short amount of time to implement and require minimum instructions and are considered by learners as being easy would lie on the simple side of the continuum. And activities that contain many steps, take a great deal of time and require detailed instructions, they lie on the complex side of the continuum. One example of the simple task that is 1 minute paper, wherein the educator asks learners to write on the topic within 1 minute. And papers are afterwards collected and are used for different purposes, like to check understanding, to gain learners' attention, or to poll learners. Another example of a very simple method is the lecture note sharing. This is a method wherein the educator pauses his presentation every 7 to 10 minutes and asks the learners compare their notes with someone who is sitting left or right to them. So in this way, the educator creates the atmosphere and environment for sharing, understanding, and for gaining new ideas or better understanding from the peers. The example of a complex task is the treasure hunt method, which requires learners to search for a series of clues that lead to discovery of new information. This activity requires a substantial amount of time for both preparation and execution, and participants must follow many steps to complete this method. Course objective continuum. So the course objective continuum places knowledge, skills, and attitude at opposite ends of the continuum. Bonwell and Sutherland consider the question of whether the outcome sought is for the learner to acquire knowledge, a skill, an attitude, or a combination of them, to be the most important question that must be answered before the selection of the method. The answer to this question determines whether on the continuum the course goals or objectives lay. And it's very important also because there are different strategies how to teach skills or attitudes. For example, if you want to teach your learners how to display different emotions, then you can use an instructional approach, some individual tasks, or very structured paired tasks, or small role-playing games. But the more your goals are shifted to the side of gaining attitudes, for example, gaining empathy, more facilitating techniques or methods you should use. Classroom interaction continuum. This reflects the overall level of interaction that the educator prefers or is comfortable with. So this continuum is very much about the comfort of the educator and his teaching style. So the two extremes are limited interaction on the right, limited interaction on the left side of the continuum, or extensive motivation on the right side of the continuum. An educator's teaching style, willingness to change, and personality characteristic really impact his or her comfort level with using these strategies. For example, if an educator is an extrovert, he of course will tend a little bit to the extensive communication and his methods during his course. But if an educator is an introvert, for him it will be quite difficult and uncomfortable to deal with methods which offer the extensive motivation. But if you, as an educator, try to use methods which you are not comfortable with, like you're not comfortable with the extensive motivation, but you are trying to do it because many of your colleagues do it, the learners and participants will feel it, and they will also feel uncomfortable. So it's very important to know your style of teaching, your personality style, to choose methods in the right way. So if you feel comfortable with limited interaction, or if your educational goal demands limited interaction, then you can use structured discussions like fishbowl, or paired exercises, or small role-playing games. But if you feel good with extensive motivation, you also can use such large methods of facilitation like World Cafe, or you can use live action role-playing games or simulations. Student experience continuum. The last continuum measures the learner's experience, which the teaching style with the content or skills needed to successfully participate in the active learning strategy. To make it easier, let's take an example from the learning courses. Learners who are very familiar with the course content of upper intermediate French will be able to participate in activities that require an extensive communication and extensive interaction and extensive vocabulary. While first, like pre-intermediate learners would not be able to participate in the same activity with the same complex vocabulary and complex interaction. Similarly, the amount of comfort learners have with participating in the strategy itself is a major factor in the success of active learning strategies. Learners who feel uncomfortable with participating in the strategy or are even nervous performing part of the activity will have trouble communicating with the educator and in communication with each other, with other learners, making the entire active learning strategy ineffective. On the other hand, those who are very comfortable participating in the activities involved in the strategy can focus on what the educator wants them to understand, making the active learning strategy effective. So there are continuums which totally about the comfort of the educator, but also there are continuums which talk about the comfort of your learners and of participants. According to Bornwell and Sutherland, the 4 active learning continuums are intended to generate questions that stimulate educators to select methods that match their teaching styles, course goals, and student characteristics. So now let's apply this information to the imaginary example. Imagine that we need to design a program for a 4 hours workshop on public speaking to a group of different specialists who are currently getting long-term courses to become HR managers. So if I'm an educator in this case, I will begin with a continuum of student experience. And I will ask myself the first question: are my students experienced in public speaking? I would say yes, because most of them are managers, senior managers or line managers, and which means that they present the results of their work on different meetings in front of their peers, team members, or in front of the other managers. So they speak, they have some experience. Of course, they are not professional public speaker, but they have this experience. So I will choose not a polar item, but something close to it. Then I will think about the course objectives continuum. What do they want to have as a result? So they want to learn main principles of public speaking and apply them to a short 3-minute speech. So it will be closer to acquisition of skills. After that, I will think about the classroom interaction continuum. It will be very good for the group to present their speech not only to me, but also to the peers, because in reality, their working place, they will speak to the public and will get a feedback from the public, also from managers. There will not be a speaking coach. And I also know that there are 20 people and we have only 4 hours. Half of it I will leave for explaining the basic principles of public speaking, and I need to leave some time for them to prepare a speech, a small speech, right, on our workshop. So Perhaps we will not have much time for everyone to present their speech for the whole audience of 20 people, which means that I will need to use small group structured work where they can present their speech in a small group and get a feedback from the small group. So even if I am okay, because I'm an extroverted person and I'm quite experienced in managing different kind of discussions, and I'm okay with extensive communication, the objective and timeframes propose me to stay somewhere in the middle of this continuum. And the last one, task complexity continuum. As we're limited in time, I can't use complex methods. They should be simple. So now looking at the picture, I would choose a lecture, combining it with buzz groups for the instructional part and series of small group tasks for developing and presenting short speeches. Each time I design a course or a workshop program, I'm very careful with what should be my result. I think it over in details. I imagine my group, their needs, emotional and intellectual. I think about the time and a framework, and only after that, I think about methods, which could help me to communicate the theme to my learners. But I never begin from the method itself.